Hi, welcome to C2C World TV. I'm Yvonne Jones, your host for today's series called By Entrepreneurs for Entrepreneurs with our lovely co-host, Robin Edelman. Today's show is sponsored by Edible Home Gardens Ranch, RV, and Tiny Home Resort Communities that offers affordable housing starting at only $250 a month up to $500 a month. Investors can earn 7% to 12% fixed per annum paid each month or 35% paid every month for the RV section. Call us at 417-664-4424 to get more info. We have a special guest this evening, Sandra Simmons, who is a dedicated business cash flow specialist known for providing expert financial solutions and is tailored for the small business owner, the entrepreneurs. Her extensive expertise in cash flow management has enabled small businesses to grow their financial health and wealth. Sandra empowers each entrepreneur's business that she consults by helping them to create a lasting impact within their industry. Sandra specializes in a cash flow management system that provides comprehensive solutions that help their business to maximize their financial efficiency. Her services frequently include financial assessments, forecasting, and the development of personalized financial strategies to ensure sustained growth. Sandra also helps each business owner by forecasting collaborative ventures and encouraging mutual growth and prosperity. Welcome, Sandra, to our C2C World TV show that's all about entrepreneurs. Please start the show by telling, excuse me, our viewers what motivated you in this new venture.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with you and happy to talk to your audience. And what started me on this venture? I was working on the corporate side for about 17 years, and it was in marketing. I was a marketing executive, and I helped large corporations like McDonald's and Pizza Hut and Frito-Lay and Southland Corporation 7-Eleven stores. That's who my jobs were with. And I helped them bring in millions of dollars with marketing, and I watched them waste every penny of it.
Wow.
And my last job, I worked for a company, and I was traveling about 90% of my time, crossing 3 time zones every week. And after about 7.5 years, I went to my boss and I said, just give me a job in the corporate office. I really don't care what it is, but I want to sleep in my own bed at night. I am so tired of traveling.
Oh, yeah.
So he put me in charge of 4,500 stores with a specific group of categories within the stores. And I knew instinctively that my job was to beat the numbers that those categories had done the year before. Every business wants growth, bigger numbers next year. And then you have to beat your own numbers year after year over year. So I went trotting down to the accounting department and I asked him for a printout of what each store had done the year before and the districts and the regions. And they gave me this big, tall stack of green bar continuous feed forms. This was back in the early 80s. And it took me about 2 weeks to wade through that stuff. But bottom line, what I learned about those 4,500 stores was that they had made 90 million in retail sales after cost of goods sold. What does that mean? That means they had paid for all of their inventory and they still made 90 million. And inventory is like the most expensive part of doing business, replenishing.
Great.
So they made 90 million and they lost 12 million. And my jaw just dropped to the floor. I mean, how could anybody make $90 million and lose money? It was beyond my reality. And so I was at the same time on the zoning board of adjustments. I'm a giver. I volunteer for a whole lot of stuff because I like helping people. So I was on the zoning board of adjustments in my little town in Texas. And there was a gentleman on there who I considered to be a financial genius because he had built companies, sold them for billions, turned around and opened another company and run it up and sell it for millions more and then start another company. I knew that he knew what he was doing
Yeah.
with cash flow. I didn't call it cash flow. I just called it money back then.
Mhm.
He had money smarts. And so I called him up and I said, I have this problem that I need to understand and I can't figure out. And I told him the situation. He said, "Come on over and bring your reports, and we'll look at it and see if we can figure it out together." I said, "Okay." So he looked at it, and while he was going through the green bars and reading my notes that I had written on the side of the sheets, he made this comment. He said, "Well, it's obviously that they weren't running the company on cash flow management." And I said, "Well, what's that?"
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, let me tell you what it is." And he proceeded to explain it to me in simple terms, that it is strategically planning out the expense of how you're going to spend every dollar in the best interest of the company.
Oh.
And he said people don't pay attention to that, and the company becomes like a leaking sieve, and somebody drills the holes bigger and it just leaks faster. And he said what that 12 million was somebody drilled the holes pretty big and they managed to
Mm.
lose money even though they made so much income. And he said, you'll find that, and I found this to be true. He says, you will find that business owners believe that to solve their money problems, all they have to do is make more sales. And that's not true
Mhm.
because they can waste money. They can spend it on the
Yeah.
wrong thing. They don't save money. They don't pay themselves enough. They get burned out. They want to quit. It can be a lot of different things. So sales, while it's part of the answer, is not the whole answer. So uh, I knew that the accounting department didn't know why the stores had lost money. That's not what accountants are for. Accountants are number crunchers. They put the data in from the bank statements and the credit card statements. They're data entry people, and they never really think about or take the time to think about what they're seeing on those sheets and what effect it's having on the company. And so I did a deep dive for quite a while on cash flow management and what that meant. And I tried to kind of steer my division heads that were over, the stores that I had categories in, to think like that,
Mhm.
at least within my categories, so I could beat my numbers. And I beat them handily. I mean,
Wow.
stores lost $12 million. All you have to do is make $12 million and break even, and you're a hero, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, at the same time, I wanted to get out of the corporate world because I was tired of, the games that they play, the out ethics at the top echelons. They're
Mhm.
out playing golf while, they're laying off people and
Yeah.
doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to open my own business, and so I decided that I wanted to learn cash flow management so I could use that when I opened my own business, so I could do the right thing with my money, and I didn't get in trouble like that other company did.
Right, right.
And so I came up with this system, and this was back in, I opened my doors in 1994. All we had on computer was DOS. We had no email, no spreadsheets, no nothing. We had DOS. That's
Wow.
it. Um, and my first QuickBooks program was a DOS program.
Mm.
It didn't work very well, but it was what it was. So I put this thing together and I had notes and checklists, like a checklist of everything that I was supposed to do each day of the week, and then all these notes about how I was supposed to do it and why it was important. And so when I opened my doors, when the money started coming in, I used my notes and my checklists every week, and it worked like magic. And
Mhm.
so, uh, long story that I won't tell tonight, but there's a reason that I pivoted from marketing to accounting.
Mm.
But when I did, I started getting business owners in my community doing their books for them. And I was watching how they were using their money. And I realized that I needed to teach them my system. So I told them, I'm going to teach you my system because I see, you're making some mistakes with your money and you could do a lot better.
Mhm.
So at the end of the week, And all weekend, I was running from office to office to office, sitting shoulder to shoulder with them at their desk
Yeah.
with my notes and my checklists. And we were doing cash flow management allocation with the money that had come in. And then we were doing planning on how they were going to hit their income planning target the following week, plan it all out.
Mhm.
And so you get tapped out on hours real quick when you're running office to office to office. And I
Right.
couldn't
Yeah.
handle very many people, you know? Um, so as technology advanced and we got a semblance of a spreadsheet program, it wasn't Excel, but it was a spreadsheet program on computer. I moved that to a spreadsheet program and I gave them all my clients copies of it. And I said, okay, so now you can do all this, the stuff that we've been doing, and then we can just talk on the phone and you can ask me questions. Because they would always ask me, am I doing this right?
Mhm.
Can I spend
Yeah.
this money over here? What do you think? They really wanted to do the right thing, but they were not sure of themselves that they could do it. But it worked out okay. And so I was able to add more clients because all I had to do was talk to them on the phone. I didn't have to drive to their office, and they were doing a lot of the spreadsheet stuff before I even talked to them on the phone. And so with those more clients, now I have more people asking me questions about their business and, becoming a coach more than anything and running out of hours because I was adding clients and you just fill up your hours really quick. And so eventually I decided I needed to turn it into a software program, or I had adopted all these children and they were going to be calling me for the rest of their careers in
Yeah.
the middle of the night saying, can I spend this money? Can I buy this piece of equipment? What do you think? It's like, I don't want to do this. So it took me 5 years to launch the software. Have it. I wrote out all the notes and found a developer that would do it on a milestone basis. And it took me 5 years to pay for it and get it launched, but it's running today. I eventually moved it online.
Yeah.
At the time, technology, we didn't have online stuff like that. It
Mhm.
had to be you buy the disc, you download it, you own it type of program.
Right.
And but it needed to be online, so I did that in 2012. And then my husband retired as a chiropractor and was looking for something to do. And I said, well, why don't you start a marketing agency and help my clients bring in more cash flow? And then I'll coach them on how to spend it right. So that's what we did. And he took the company international, my software international, that first year, which was very exciting. And I'm working with like a guy over in Greece who designs jewelry display things for jewelers and all kinds of different industries that I got to be educated in, which is a blessing. I've
Yeah.
worked with business owners in over 50 industries, and who who gets the opportunity for that kind of experience, in a very
Yeah.
short amount of time. It was incredibly valuable to me because I saw so many different kinds of problems and had to, help them figure out how to solve their problem. And then I could translate that to another company.
Mm.
So in the meantime, my parents brought me up to lead a life of service. And their saying was service above self, always, and always being willing to help someone else. So I was getting into volunteering in the community and everything. And because my parents were both World War II veterans, of course, as a proud military brat, I wanted to help veterans. And I knew
Yeah.
that they had trouble transitioning, when they got out of the service. They have a great deal of problem transitioning to civilian life because
Yes.
they lose their family. They have this huge family, and they're just very tight knit. And when they transition out, they lose that entire family. And it's a devastating blow to them, and they have a really hard time. So I started looking up organizations that helped transitioning veterans. And then, of course, when I moved to Florida, it was retired veterans now that needed help because they're, getting old and there's uh, only so much medical that the VA can do for them, and it's very slow and complicated. So they were having a hard time getting the medical care they needed, or they didn't know how to get their disability benefits, and they weren't even getting that from the VA. So I eventually had this string of local organizations that I was volunteering for, and I love it. Um, helping the veterans. And so, of course, when we moved to the new neighborhood in 2022, we bought a home in Berkshire Lakes, and they have a women's club. And the reason that I joined was because they told me they had a philanthropic arm called Helping Hands.
Oh,
And this philanthropic arm was nothing but a group of private ladies who were members of the club, but also wanted to do something for the community. And they had been operating for 23 years. And they had adopted 5 elementary schools that whose student population were considered Title I-A students. Now, in Florida, what that means is that 95% of the student body of that school comes from way below poverty level families. Those
nice.
parents are out there working 3 to 5 jobs just to pay rent and put dinner on the table. The students get free lunch and free breakfast from the state at school. The state of Florida pays for that. So you can imagine Christmas break and summers are really hard because they don't get the
Yeah.
breakfast and lunch, and their parents are out
Yeah.
working to try to put dinner on the table.
Mhm.
So these women decided that they would do fundraising just locally, quietly in the background. They're not a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3). They're just private ladies doing this. And they managed to build quite a network of donors in the community to help these kids. And they would buy school supplies because the parents can't afford to send their kids to school with pencils and crayons. They were too expensive. And they couldn't afford to leave snacks at home when they had their Christmas break and the parents were out working all day every day. Kids had nothing. Uh, and then there were the little kids, first and second graders, who never wanted to go home because it was scary because their parents weren't there and they were too little to go outside because they'd be
Yeah.
trafficked in an instant. And so they were told that they had to stay inside the house, and they don't have cell phones or video games or anything to do. So they're sitting in that house all by themselves, waiting for
Gee.
a parent to come home and
Wow.
hoping that there's something in the fridge. And so, of course, I joined the women's club so I could be part of that Helping Hands group. And we've grown it quite a bit. And we're doing a fashion show fundraiser every year.
It's always very
And
good.
we've got programs started for those first and second graders where we give them summer activity packs on the day before the last day of school, which keeps them busy and learning all summer long. It's packed full of activity books and crayons and color pencils and all kinds of stuff. And they just love it.
That's
And
awesome.
so, we feel really good about that. And we spend a lot on sending backpacks home for like Thanksgiving break, Easter break, Christmas break, summer break,
Mhm.
and that type of thing. But anyway, back to business, back to helping entrepreneurs. That's enough about kids and veterans. Um, so on the entrepreneur side, one of the things that I noticed is that a small business owner will spend too much time working in their business and no time almost working on their business. And what's the difference? When you're down working in your business, you're doing what you started the business for. A veterinarian loves to be in the back room doing surgeries and
Mhm.
giving, you know, rabies shots or whatever they do back there. But very seldom do they go out in the front office and sit down and talk to the office manager about, did Henry Schein raise prices on us this month? Because they usually do this month, this time every year. They don't think to do that. They want to be in the back room doing what they love. And that's understandable. But when you're the owner, you have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of that business and do what's
Kind of
right for the
like
business.
wearing multiple hats, right? I mean, you've got this hat you got to put on, you got this hat to put on, and we all know as an entrepreneur, we're all wearing multiple hats. So, exactly what you're saying. And I can relate to that with my Edible Home Gardens Resorts. It's like I want to be in the garden, right, Robin?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's
She
what's
she's
fun.
always wanted to be in the garden. Yes, that's
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
garden. Well, and I
Yeah.
love the shows too, but there's these hats that we all have to wear when you're an entrepreneur, and you especially target those smaller entrepreneurs too, which I really appreciate. I want to hear more about that, but finish what you were saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you like that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, because they need help. They have, to them, business expansion can be hiring their first virtual assistant. And it's like they get scared, like, is the person going to help me bring in money? What am I going to give them to do? Why, I can do it so fast now by myself. Why should I hire that person?
Mhm.
I wonder how much I'm going to have to pay them. They just like go into this frenzy of worry and doubt and worry and doubt. And uh,
Mhm.
I'll think about it and they take forever to make a decision. And then, when they hire the person, what I tell them is like, put away 2 months worth of the person's salary because it's going to be 2 months before they're producing, but you have to train them to produce
Mhm.
and to do the things that you need for them to do that frees you up, that helps the business make more money. So
Right.
let's figure out what tasks that is that you're going to give that person, how much you're willing to pay for them to do that, and how much time it's likely to free up for you that you can go out and sell and close jobs.
Mhm.
Because that's the point. You get help so you can grow the business. Um, and they all have to go through that at some point. And
Mhm.
then, a small chiropractic office owner, business expansion for him might be, I have a chiropractic office in this town, but I'm pulling a few people from the next town over, 15, 20 minutes away, because they don't have a chiropractor.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to open a clinic over there, and I'm going to work 3 days a week here and 2 days a
Mhm.
week over there.
Mhm.
So I say, okay, well, when do you want to do that? Let's put money aside every week in order to do that because you have to rent the space, you got to buy the equipment, all the medical equipment that you use. Got to hire a front desk person to be there those 2 days because I don't know that Sally's going to want to run down there. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't.
Mhm.
And so you have to plan it all out, figure out how much it's going to cost, and start putting money aside for that expansion. So it doesn't cannibalize the current business when you do that. That's a big mistake to open a second uh, location and let it cannibalize the income of the original location. It's got to stand on its own feet as fast as possible.
Right.
So, and they don't look, they don't think about that. They're just in there doing it.
Mm.
So that's one thing. And then they cringe when you start talking about building a budget because there's this big myth about budgets. They immediately think that the definition of a budget is I can't buy anything fun. It's like, where did that definition come from? That is not what a budget's for. And so I very patiently explain the four purposes of a budget. And one of them, the most important one, is it gives you your income planning target. Now, what does that mean? That means that you take all of your cost of goods sold. That's your inventory, or for like a carpet cleaning service, it's all the supplies and equipment that you buy in order to be able to clean carpets and furniture and tile grout. That's all cost of goods sold. So you take what you're paying for that, and then you add to that all of the expenses that you pay for your business. Now, the expenses are, regardless of what industry you're in, you're going to buy that stuff. It's your website, it's utilities, it's insurance, it's bank charges, it's training, for yourself. It's advertising, it's automobile expenses. Regardless of what you're doing, you're going to have those expenses. So you add that to the cost of goods sold. And then in my system, we add the debt. They go to the balance sheet and figure out how much debt do they have? How far have you run up those credit cards? That's coming over to the budget because we're going to have to pay that off. You can't borrow your way to solvency. If you want to grow your business, you got to get out of debt.
That's true.
And then we have what I fondly call the 4 buckets of cash. And that is 4 buckets that they put little bits in every week after they do payroll and promotion. They pay themselves first into those buckets, but they do pay themselves payroll as well. And we'll talk about that. But the 4 buckets are the first one's for an emergency. Now, my definition of a financial emergency is a predictable expense. You knew it was coming, but you never planned to pay for it.
Mm.
Because if you sit and think about it, you can figure out what your emergencies are going to be. As an
Yeah.
accountant, my big emergency always on my mind was when is my computer going to crash?
Oh yeah, right.
Mm.
Exactly right.
Because it's going to crash someday.
Yeah.
They're not built to last 100 years. So computer crashes are pretty common,
Mhm.
for somebody with a fleet of vehicles. doing delivery service of their products or whatever, or tradesmen that are running around, HVAC people and electricians. They all have these vehicles, and they're all going to need tires and an alignment, and one of them is going to blow an engine, and you have to plan for that because you know it's going to happen. So let's figure out what the life of your vehicles are, when they're going to go down, and you're going to have to either buy a new engine or you're going to have to replace the whole vehicle. And let's start saving for that because that's your big emergency. If you don't have a vehicle and can't get to the job site, no money's coming in. So it's a really important bucket to do pre-planning and think about what's going to happen down the road. And then there's this roller coaster economy we live in where gas prices are $5 this month and $3 next month and then $4.50 the following month. You never know.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So, you got to put money aside to weather the economic storms that come down the pike. So that's the first bucket. The second bucket is for business expansion. So you think about, what does that mean to me as a business owner? Like I said, it could be hiring your first VA. It could be moving out of your home office into a rental office because the dog and the kids just make too much noise and you can't be on Zoom with them like clamoring all over you. So you got to get out of the house. So you're going to rent an office. That's your business expansion. Step number one, get out of the house. It could be so many things to so many people. But it's an important one. And the third bucket is for self-insurance, and that's for taxes. Set aside money to pay your taxes, for legal help, like when you want to file a copyright or trademark registration, or you want an attorney to read over a contract somebody gave you and there's too many technical terms in there, you're not quite sure if you should sign it or not. You have an attorney review it. They're very proud of their hours, as they should be, and they charge a whole lot for that. So set some money aside. So it's not like, oh my gosh, they're going to charge me $1,200 for blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you got it in your bucket. That's what it's there for. Let's spend it.
Right.
And it can be for self-insurance, buying insurance, because that usually is one of the things that is the hardest to pay because, they don't think they need it. They know they have to have it. And it's expensive and they don't even want to think about it. And they hate paying those bills. And usually they forget about it because the bill only comes once a year, once every 6 months, and they can conveniently forget that it's coming and then throw a hissy fit when it shows up in the mail. Look at how it's like, calm down. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fourth bucket, we call it reserves or savings. That is for the business owner's retirement. And so I tell all of my clients, you should be paying yourself 2 paychecks every week. They go, really? How do I do that? I say, you pay yourself, you figure out what your household needs. Now, this is the payroll line. On the budget, the officer or owner of the company goes on a separate line from the staff. And the officer needs to figure out how much after taxes they have to bring home to run their household because they got a household over there that they have to feed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's what goes on the payroll line, how much they need to make before taxes. So they have enough after taxes to take home. And then the second paycheck that they pay themselves is into the retirement bucket called savings or reserves, little bits every week. And when that builds up to a certain amount, then they go interview financial advisors and find one that they trust that can invest that money for them so they can take advantage of the magic of compounding. And it truly is magic. So
I love compounding. I love it with, for me, with it being in a, financial, well, I say investor, what we do. But speaking of that, we've only got like about 4 minutes because we got kind of got long here on what we're trying to do. I want to go through your 4 buckets. I thought that was important to go and to touch on your 4 buckets. But technically, we really got about less than 5 minutes to before we come up to a hard break. But so is there anything that you think that you might have missed or not touched on, or on your 4th bucket maybe that we might get?
Well, what I wanted to say is you have to add all 4 of those things up: cost of goods sold, expenses, debt pay down, and the 4 buckets of cash. That gives you your income planning target. You break it down weekly. What is that number weekly? That's how much money the business needs to bring in to pay all of their bills, to pay off their debt, and to achieve all of their financial goals, including the business expansion, the nice quality retirement, the being prepared for any economic storm or emergency that happens. And that income planning target is the most important number that the business owner needs to know. And so when they cringe at the word budget, it's like you really don't understand how helpful that could be to you. Because if you're planning that you need to bring in 5,000 a month and you really do your budget, like I'm teaching you, and you find out that you need to be bringing in $10,000 a month, you're planning to go broke at 5 if that's all you're going to plan for. So that's how important that is.
It's complicated, isn't it? I mean, especially when you're dealing with entrepreneurs who are already like starting a new venture. They may not have all those buckets set up because it's complicated. Like you said, there's this fear factor. And so trying to cross over those hurdles when people are entrepreneurs is something that, that you can help them with and help manage and get through, I think, push through what they're working on. Do you think that you agree with that?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and especially I have to laugh over taxes. They freak out at how much taxes they owe at the end of the year if they made a profit. And I laugh and I say, you don't understand. Your tax bill is the story of how good a leader you were because you made your business profitable. If you
Right.
want to be a bad leader and have your company go broke every year, so you don't owe any taxes, eventually you're going to hit bankruptcy because the IRS isn't going to let you stay in business losing money every year. You're not running a business. You've got a hobby. So
Yeah.
when they freak out over taxes, I remind them that that's the story that, tells everybody were they successful or not as a leader of their company.
That's a good
Oh,
point.
I agree. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and that's just the way it goes. That way we have a lot
Oh, darn
of
it.
information. But I'd like to maybe have you back sometime where you can go into more depth, or maybe you
Yeah.
could have someone that you've worked with and do a walkthrough and show an example of how you were able to help someone. That would be a fun show, I think, making it more personal and it might just be a fun experience. But I would like to say thank you so much for coming on our show tonight. And Robin,
Thank
do
you
you have
so much.
anything you want to say, last words? Well, 1 minute left on the clock.
No, I just want to say thank you so much, Sandra, for joining us. It's been such a true blessing. And Yvonne, thank you for the beautiful opportunity to be co-host. What a beautiful show. I feel so blessed. Thank you.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I agree with her when it comes to being an investor and making sure that you're working hard for, what your goals are and making sure that you have some kind of like bucket, like what she's saying, to make sure you can sort that all out because boy, it can get real tricky fast, right? It can get
Yeah.
real tricky fast. But again, I want to say thank you so much for being on our show. And yeah, and all of your information will be in the show notes, Sandra. So if anyone
Yes.
wants to reach you and get a hold of you, they can. And of course, our information will also be in the show notes. But with that, I have to say thank you and good night and have a great week, all.
All right.
Blessings. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye for now.
Bye for now.